Okay, welcome and good evening. Again, we are recording this our session where I will acknowledge your screen, and this is our Q4 session. December 5th, 2016. Welcome, and we have an hour in the room already. So just opening up the bits here that we should be using for tonight. All the wonderful essay parts coming from that case answer again. Yes, good night all. And let's see, right, so pen tools are open. And this is file size, so I can see both the charts and the share at the same time. So let's remove this. Right now, I believe I am sharing the answer sheet. So let's go to a new share and we will share the question paper. Right, so Amar, can you see the Excel file now with the question paper? Great, so that's what we're dealing with. Who else is here in the room with us? Anita is here. And we're just fiddling around while we wait for the others. So now that everybody had a chance to read the question, everybody got a copy of their question. And it is such a wonderful question on foreign currency hedging. So it did all these things with reference to purchasing power parity. Explain how exchange rate fluctuations may lead to economic exposure. So wonderful 6 marks. Then your discussion paper, or in other words, your report, including all relevant calculations, estimating dividend capacity. Where did that come from? That is not really hedging, but it's another wonderful set of marks. So we will spend some time dealing with that. Let's try and see how much of this case we can get done tonight. So further advice and recommendations on appropriate hedging strategy, 14 marks for the hedge here. Then using information on dividends provided, assess whether another project would add value. So it's not only a hedging question, it's just hedging, dividend capacity, value added, per se, or increase in value. And again, discuss the issues of the proposed methods of financing. So 9 marks there for another further simple discussion on all the issues. So you must be well-rounded in your preparation in order to deal with this 50 marks. You cannot believe that this is a foreign currency case for 50 marks. It is not so. It's a foreign currency part for 14 marks. So that is where we will start off tonight. Let's jump into our 14 marks and see how quickly we can get that done. And then we'll switch back to what I would call exam mode, where you would need to now do all the other theory bits, at least part A, and then you could even do the discussion of issues before you do anything else, the issues of the proposed methods, right? So you could present A, then start B, present the discussion and say, this is what the effects that should be considered together with the computations which will be assessed later on. So once you say something like that, then you get into your issues. you collect in 6 marks and 9 marks before you do anything else. All right. So again, that would be exam strategy. But for tonight, did anybody in the room who we have, Anita and Amar, did anybody get the chance to attack the hedging yet? No? Amar, anything on the hedging? No? All right, let's start up with that then. So apart from all this reading, if you did take a read of it, you'll see that's all that information. And here, sale of equity investment. It's expected that they will receive this 20 million euro in 3 months' time. And there's a call coming in here. Just excuse me 1 second. Let me deal with this. Right, sorry about that. Phone call out of the way. All right, back to here. So at least people would have had a chance to read some of the stuff. So, clock falling over there. Let's fix that. Right, back to here. So again, our hedge is on this receipt of this 20 million euro in, again, 3 months' time. One more thing we'll need to add into here from the top of the question. Did anybody read what is the date now? No? 1st of March. Very good. From up here, we were told you can assume today is 1st of March 2016. Good. So I'm just inserting that here down here. The 1st of March 2016. And 3 months time from that. So could somebody tell me when is 3 months time from 1st of March 2016? Plus 3 months. When will that lead us to? 1st of June? To the 1st of May, 1st of June, both mean the same thing, May then June, right? So either 1st of June or 31st of May, both are 1 day apart and both would be fine. Good. So great. Next. What else we got here for this hedge? So again, we're trying to do this part with the hedge alone and then get back to all the wonderful theory. So financial press has reported there may be a permanent shift in the euros to dollar exchange rate, and with firms with an economic exposure, they have decided to hedge their euro receipt using one of these three, either forward, futures, or options. Of course, all of them based on currency. So currency hedge. So 1, 2, 3. And the following contracts are available. So that's all we got to do. Use these values to hedge this receipt in euros. Now, one tricky thing that this question had, if anybody read this area, what types of contracts are we being given? What would we call these contracts? What is the currency of the contract, in other words? Dollars. And if anybody remembers anything from the manual, it would be that, do we normally have contracts for dollars? Is that a regular thing that we have, contracts for dollars? No. Well, I could refer you here then, Anita, to this page in our chapter 16, and this page which introduced these types of contracts. 2 pages actually, the page on the currency futures as well as that for the currency options. So on page 438 will tell us about the futures, and if you read options, about the options, fixed rate, where that ran away, options to sell dollars. Right, so paragraph C on page 451, paragraph C, the second line will tell us dollar contracts. UK company receiving dollars in the future, wishing to sell dollars in the future cannot hedge by purchasing dollar put options as they do not exist. So they're saying dollar put options do not exist. But yet, this is old news, because when we look down here, these are contracts for dollars, right? So currency options denominated in dollars. This is, again, we have our put options down here, and it's dollar options. So again, previously to this question, we did not have contracts of this type. But this takes us into the, good night, Stacy. This takes us into the answer to the question that Anita asked me last night. How do we know which contracts to choose, right? So we'll do a short discussion on that, although I want to do the forward rate first. So let's deal with the forward rate first. Stacy, did you get a chance to read the question or get to this page with the hedges? Stacy, did you look at the hedges? All right, okay. So just basically about setting that up. And so I want to digress across here. Let me put down those rules then. So the rules which would apply to, could have put it lower down, but so. Choosing, so this rules will apply to choosing the contract, choosing a contract action. I think that will be a better way to put it. So in choosing the contract action, what I want to say, while last night I was saying it depended on whether it was a receipt or a payment, that again would have been the older methodology to try and get through scenarios where you did not have dollar contracts, but now that they have thrown dollar contracts at us, we need to be able to deal with that. So what I would say is, first rule is, now this would apply for both futures and options. First, identify the currency of the contract. All right, and that's what we just did. We said that this contract was in US dollars. Good. So once we have the currency of the contract down, then 2, identify what we are doing with the currency of the contract. And once we have that down, in cash. So once we have that, then we can now determine what are we going to do with our hedges. So you're going to have two cases. So if with the cash you are buying the currency of the contract, then in the futures, that would mean you would buy futures contracts in that same currency, right? So all of this is about that currency of the contract. Again, that's why we identified what contract, what currency the contract is in. So you'll buy futures contracts to open the hedge, and of course you would close out, sell futures contracts to close. So that's the futures where you buy and you sell. On the options, since again, up on top we said you're buying the currency of the contract, you would therefore, what is the option to buy? Anybody? Excellent. So you would therefore buy call options. That is the option to buy. Now, of course, both the futures and the options is denominated in the contract currency. That's why we identified first what is the currency of the contract. So that's in the first case where I could call this A then, right? In case A, where in the cash or with the cash, you're actually buying the currency of the contract. In case B, each of these would now be reversed because you're either going to be buying that currency of the contract or you're going to be selling that currency of the contract. So let me just copy those off and edit them. So if looking at the cash transaction and what's going on, now again, this is actually independent of whether it's a receipt or a payment, right? So whether it's a receipt or payment really twists the scenario around. So you simply look at the currency of the contract, and if you are selling the currency of the contract, then in the futures market, you will do that same thing. You would sell futures contracts to open a hedge. And of course, if you open with a sell, then you're going to close with a buy futures contracts to close the hedge. Now, to the options, the option to sell is therefore put contracts or put options. So again, you have to buy the options, whether they are puts or calls. So you are purchasing now the option to sell. All right, Anita, so that would be your rules to identify which transaction to do if you have or when you have futures contracts, as well as the type of contracts to purchase when you are dealing with the options contracts. Right, so very important. And again, things like this we can use in our notations as we go forward. So let us start off with our hedge. Our first hedge in this, what part of the question is this? This is B part 2. So in our B part 2 first hedge, we are dealing with the forward contract. So we can still identify what we are doing with the cash to help out this forward transaction. So what's happening with our cash? What are we hedging? We're hedging a receipt or a payment, and in which currency? All right, so a receipt of what? Receipt of euros, very good. And therefore, does the company want euro? What type of company is it? And what's it doing with that euro? So a little bit from up above, they're saying Lir Engineering Company, projects around the world. The project requires $40 million. And right in this paragraph here, I think it was right here, Lir has decided to hedge a receipt using one of these contracts. So therefore, right, when it collects that euro, it's going to be converting it into dollars, right? So is everybody picking that up? That we'll need to convert the euros to dollars for the use in the project. So with that now comes back to our exchange rate theory, right? So forward rates, thinking of what notation we're writing for that. Let's go and do our forward contract hedge. So this is B, part 2, forward contract hedge. So forward contracts operate like the spot rates at the future date. We have rates for 3 months forward, when the euro cash $20 million will be received. We must identify what the bank will do with the base currency of the forward rates. And since the forward rates are quoted as 1.1559 and 1.1610, come on, 1.1559 and 1.16, that's not a 6, 1.559, 1.610, 1.601, 1.601, and these are both amounts of dollars per euro, dollars per euro. This means is the base currency. So when we receive our pounds, the bank will be buying these pounds from us. Hence, the bank will buy, I keep saying pounds, euros, at the which rate, high or low? Good. The bank will buy low so that it will win at the low rate. That is 1.1559 dollars per euro. Yep. Any queries at this stage? Now, at this stage, I will put a note. This can be converted or can be used to convert the 20 million high quantity. No, Anita, that quantity statement deals with when you are looking at the term, right? So if you're looking at what the bank is doing with the term currency, then you would want to be looking at the higher quantity, because 1.15 is a smaller quantity than 1.16, right? So what's the bank doing with the dollars? The bank is selling us dollars. And they would sell us the lower amount of currency for that for each euro, right? So that's where it will still, the analysis should still come back to the 1.159. So you use one at a time. You don't use a quantity statement when you say when you use the base, right? So in dealing with the base, you just go with the bank buys at the lower rate. All right, further. So this can be used to convert the 20 million euros into cash, or compared cash to compare to the other hedges, or compared as an effective rate. So we are going to be using it as a rate. So let's see which hedge gets us the better rate. All right. Now, again, for that rate to be better, would it be higher or lower? Which rate would be better? A lower rate, because we have to divide, no. If this is the amount of dollars per euro, and we have so many euros, it's going to be a higher rate, because to convert these euros into dollars, we have to multiply. Right? Are you following that, Anita? If we had the choice to, let's say, compare 1.15, 1.16, 1.17, 1.18, and those are amounts of dollars per euro. If we had the choice, which we don't have in the forward rate, in the forward rate situation, it is the bank's choice. That's why we are forced to take the 1.1559 rate, right? Because that's the bank's option. That's why I put the rule across like that, because we have to identify what the bank is doing, and we are forced to exchange at 1.1559. So the profit is not for us, the profit is for the bank. But if we had a choice, which is what we do with the hedges, if we had a choice between hedges, we would want to choose a higher rate, because we are multiplying by the 20 million euros. Good? So let's say that here. When comparing the three hedges, the choice of effective rates will be the highest one, since we are multiplying our 20 million euros by these rates. The higher, the better for, what's the name of the company? L-I-R-I-O, Liro, right? Is it Liro or Lyra? Let's just scan up here and get that name. L-I-R-I-O, I got it, Lyro, right? So let's go identifying rates as far as we can. So we're on to the futures hedge. So in the futures hedge, we simply outline our lock-in rate, and that's the end of the futures hedge. Again, we are not in a case where we would identify where we need the closeout rate to sell at and so on, because this is not a rate or a option on futures. We only deal with the closeout rate when we have the option on the futures. In this case, we have options on cash. So we can actually use the option to get cash. Right, so let's deal with Anita's question here. She's asking, if we're dividing, we choose a lower one. Or would it still be higher? Definitely you would choose the lower one if you're dividing to perform the conversion. Because when you divide by a smaller number, you will get something that's more beneficial to you or to the company. If you divide by a smaller number, you will get a larger outcome. Right? Now again, that sort of would depend on, do you want to pay more or is it a receipt for receiving more? Right? So again, I think we could stick the concept of receipt in here as well. So that'll chime in with the receipt. Since this rate, since by these rates divided by these rates, let me stick in here to find net receipt. All right, so since we're looking for a receipt, you want your receipt to be bigger, right? If it was a payment, you would want your payment to be smaller. Okay, so those two elements come into that conclusion. Right, so futures hedge. So again, ask any queries that you have as we go along. So with the futures hedge, remember we outline what's happening now to what is happening as we have it in 3 months' time. So, and again, to find basis, we start off with the futures rate. And we less the spot rate. So, what's our opening futures rate? And again, will we be buying or selling to open this futures hedge? So in the futures contracts, we only have 2 rates to choose from. So let's find a rate. Which rate would be applicable for us? March or June? What's the date now? The date now is 1st of March. So therefore, in 3 months' time, this would be expired, wouldn't it? Yeah? Expired. Expired in 1 month. So therefore, that's not going to be useful. Okay? So therefore, we have to use the June futures. And we only have 1 rate, so it doesn't matter. We don't have buying and selling rates, but we'll identify that right after. 0.8656. Now this is amount of euros per dollar. 8656. 0.8656. And for the futures hedge, these are amounts of euros per dollar. So what's our spot rate? And which spot rate are we going to choose? This now we could identify by what's our transaction. So as the contract currency is, I should put this a little lower down. I should have really put this notation before I started the format, but that's okay. As the contract currency is dollars, when we receive our euros, we will be using it to do what with dollars? What are we doing with the contract currency? No, not hedge. Buy or sell. Good? Are you following that, Anita? We would take the euros that we collect and we would go to the bank and buy these dollars with it. So we'll be using it to buy dollars cash. So that's from the rules above. So if we are buying the dollars cash, Thus, I could fill in another sentence there before I go on to the future. So if we're buying the dollars cash, we have the exchange rates there, and we need to see what rates the bank will force us to buy. So if we are buying the cash, dollars cash, the bank again is selling us. No, the bank, as we said before, is buying our euros and will again buy it at the low rate for euros. Right? So that's on the cash side before we move to the future side. Good. So this is all we need. Bank is, we are buying the dollars cash. We need that to determine the futures and the options contract. But look at how these rates are given for the cash rate. So at the cash instance, again, we'll be buying at the low rate. And what is the low rate for buying cash? Buying dollars, that is. The bank will buy our euros at the lower rate for euros, which in the spot rates, could somebody quote me the right rate now? What's the lower spot rate for the bank buying those euros? 1 point, spot rate, Amar. Amar has quoted the forward rate. See, that's why I ask people to do that, so that we will not be making these mistakes in the exam. Right, 1585, right? So let's get back to this description here, to this notation, make sure you're okay with this narration. So, as a contract currency is dollars, when we receive our euros, we'll be using it to buy the dollars, but the bank is therefore buying our euros and will again buy it at a low, I could stick in the weird spot somewhere there. We'll buy it, well, actually, at a low rate for euros. Let's put in spot here. Thus, the spot rate, the low spot rate for euros is 1.1585, right? Or price of dollars, convert that into a price of dollars. We'll have to take 1 divided by 1.1585. What will we get? Right, 0.8632, very good. 0.8632. And this would now be called an amount of euros per dollar. Right, so that's what we'll need to stick up in here, because these, again, as I had it up here, is values in euros per dollar. So while we found the value in dollars per euro, 1.185, to compare it here, we need 0.8632. Right, further, we could just talk the other bit about the forward contract, but sorry, futures contract, but I can get back to that in a little bit. Let me deal with this piece here up on top first. So here, I'm dealing with basis. Futures rate plus the correct spot rate is going to give you basis. And that's equal to that minus that. 863? No? Somebody get me that answer. What is the basis now? Good. 0024. So in 3 months' time, how much basis would be remaining? So since this is a June contract, that would mature in 4 months' time. Oh, fancy stuff, Anita's giving me here. Hold on. Maturity. How long is from now until maturity? When do these contracts mature? If it's a June contract, when it's going to mature? 4 months. Right, so all these other bits we could put up here. So using June contracts. Oh, I wrote that in here already. Let me put that on the top. June contracts. Right. So